We're almost done with our top 100 comics of 2016, and today we're taking a look at numbers 25 through 11. Remember, if you haven't seen numbers 100 through 26, then you can go ahead and click on the card that just popped up right now. But for everyone else who is all caught up, let's get into number 25. 4 kids walk into a bank. This is the story of 4 friends who are, well, I guess the nicest way to describe them would be outcasts. But one day they learn that one of their fathers is involved in some less than noble activities, and as these 4 friends find themselves thrown into the world of criminal activities, it becomes one of the best dark comedies I have read all year. These kids are each written so well. They each have their own individual voices, and they're all very dysfunctional voices. They are all very screwed up people, and watching the way that they interact with these, well, also very screwed up gangsters, it just becomes incredibly funny. It is hard to not instantly be won over by this book while at the same time not really wanting to be won over by it. Number 24, Lucky Penny. This is one of those books that I was very upset that I did not see on more people's best of the year list. It is a collection of a webcomic that I honestly had never even heard of until I read this book, but it is a series that the moment that you pick up and start flipping through, you can't help but instantly be won over by it. The art style is so incredibly upbeat and charming, and the writing matches that perfectly. Seriously, the writer and artist on this book is one of the best duos I have ever seen because they just get each other. It is the story of Penny, who is a girl who has the worst luck in the world, and not like a meteorite fell on my car kind of bad luck. It is very realistic bad luck. It's the kind of bad luck that all of us could see ourselves going through, which makes her a very relatable character, a character that you really want to root for, and it's just the story of her trying to get her life together as everything just constantly goes wrong. I know I have used this word to describe so many other books on this list, but there's no better word for it. This book is charming. At number 23, Love is Love. This was a trade that was put out by DC Comics and IDW Publishing in honor of those who were killed at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida in June of 2016. It was meant to raise money for those who were affected by this tragic event, and I know that would be easy to come in here and say, well, I need to put it on this list simply to honor what this book is for. However, even if this book was not made as a fundraiser, even if it was not made in response to anything, I would still gladly put this book on this list because this book features 1 or 2 page stories from so many different artists and writers, each of them just expressing their reactions to this event, each of them saying how they're feeling about it, but also just giving stories that are uplifting, telling stories that want to make you understand other people out there in the world. It is a book that is designed to try and bring people together, and honestly, I started choking up at some of these stories. And again, it's not just because it's in response to a tragic event, it's because you can feel the heart in this book. At number 22, Black Panther. Now, Black Panther is a character that many people have been asking to see for years, but Marvel wanted to make sure that they got just the right writer to come on and tackle this character. And with Ta-Nehisi Coates at the helm, yeah, they absolutely did get the right writer for this book. This new Black Panther series, it isn't just Black Panther going out there and fighting other supervillains. This is a series about politics. It is a series about what it means to be the king of Wakanda. It is a book about how heavy the head is that wears the crown. And Ta-Nehisi Coates is indeed able to make you feel that. He is able to make you feel the burden that T'Challa has trying to lead the city of Wakanda, especially when all of a sudden people start rising up against him. This is not a book that just paints Wakanda as this big futuristic nation that it always has been represented as. It is a book about the politics of Wakanda, something that very few writers have ever really tackled. Number 21, Mockingbird. This was a book about so many different things. Every single issue had a message to it, but also every single issue just wanted to make you remember Bobby Morse is a badass. I never really was that big of a Mockingbird fan. It's not like I hated her or anything, I just never really thought about the character. This book made me love the character of Mockingbird. This is a book that made me want to see where Mockingbird is going to pop up next, and as I said, this was also a book that tackled several issues. This is a book that talked about what it's like to be a woman, to be a scientist, to be a spy, to be a superhero, to be all those things at once, and the way that other people view you for being all those things. This was a book that had a lot to say, and it said it in a very witty manner. This was an incredibly clever and smart book. Number 20, The Goddamned. This is not a book for those who have a weak stomach. This is a book about the earth in biblical times, right before God decided to flood the world to destroy all the sinners. It is a story of Cain, the very first person who ever murdered someone according to the Bible, and he has now been cursed with immortality, and he now has to wander the world just watching as everything descends into chaos as he looks for a way to kill himself. And this was a story about him trying to find some redemption, trying to become a better person, and trying to find a heart once again in a world where none of that is to be found. Number 19, Detective Comics. Now, when I talked about Tom King's Batman, I said this was the Batman I have been waiting for. However, I also said that there was one other thing about Batman that I've been waiting for, and that was to see the Bat family. That was to see this big collection of characters around Batman all coming together, because to me, Batman is not the loner that everyone sees him as. He started out as that, but it's important to show that Batman eventually got to that point in which he was willing to trust other people, in which he did bring together a brand new family around him, and this was that book. But it wasn't just the Batman book. No, this is a book that featured Tim Drake, it featured Batwoman, it featured Spoiler, it featured Cassandra Cain, it featured Clayface, and every single one of them had a story. This is one of the best team books out there because it balanced every single one of these complex characters so well, gave every single one of them a voice, and every single time that it lifted you up, it would then dip you back down, but the downs and the lows never felt like they were just there to raise controversy, to get people talking. Every single one of them felt earned because, as I said, these are complex characters and sometimes really bad things are going to happen, and this book made you feel for them when they did. At number 18, AD After Death. This is the new series from Scott Snyder, and right away, it is instantly becoming one of my favorite things from him. It is a very fascinating book that is all about a world where death has been cured, where people lived for hundreds of years, and it is focusing on a thief, on someone who ever since the cure for death was found, his entire life has just been turned upside down, and it is a very intriguing look at someone just basically trying to deal with hundreds of years of life just bearing down upon them. And I absolutely love the way that they decided to tell the story. Half the book is talking about his past. It's talking about the lead up to the cure for death being found. It's talking about how he learned to become a thief, and all of that is told with just single panels that are painted onto the page with large bodies of text, almost like you're flipping through a biography. And then the modern day stuff, set hundreds of years in the future, is actually told like a regular comic book. It balances itself very well because it makes it very clear how different the world before the cure for death was and how different the world now is. Number 17, Black Widow. The team behind the incredibly successful Daredevil series from the past few years have reunited for this new Black Widow series, and they are bringing the exact same level of action and charm and intrigue to this series that they brought to Daredevil. I'll admit the series started off a little bit slow for me simply because it was 90% action and almost no actual dialogue, but when they actually did start to get into the story, they did start to delve into Natasha's past. They did actually start to talk about all the people who have been affected by her and about the legacy of the Red Room. It really started to paint a new chapter in this character's story that really did feel like the appropriate next chapter. I have read so many Black Widow series that really seem to just be retreading what we already knew about the character. This is the first one that really felt like it was doing something new, and it is being done gorgeously. I cannot stress this enough. Yes, 90% of the first few issues was just action, but it was action being drawn by Chris Samney. That's some beautiful action. Number 16, Southern Bastards. I will admit, not everyone is going to get the personal connection to this book that I got, but just speaking as someone who grew up in the South in a place where football was king and who always knew that there were some dark secrets behind every single door, this is the book I had always been waiting for. Also, I didn't mean to rhyme right there. And this book, going into its second year, has become one of those series where every single issue takes the stakes up even higher. This has become a series where from day one, you knew that things were going to reach ahead, and we thought that was going to happen several issues ago. But we are now getting to that point in which instead of everything reaching a climax, it just keeps building and building. More crimes get committed, more characters get introduced. The story behind these people become more complex. I keep thinking this thing is going to eventually peak, but instead it just keeps getting more and more tense, and I can't wait to see every single one of these stories finally come to a head. Number 15, Sheriff of Babylon. Now you guys are going to have to forgive me because I did not get a chance to read Sheriff of Babylon last year, so I am partly judging the stuff that came out this year as well as the stuff that came out last year since I read it all back to back, and holy cow, this is one of the best surprises I have come across. Even when people told me how good this book was, you really don't understand that until you experience it. This is the story of a soldier in Iraq shortly after the American invasion, and when some of the soldiers he's been training start to turn up dead, suddenly he realizes there is a mystery to be solved, and more characters start to get introduced, more characters start to team up with him, every single one of them have their own unique backstories. If you enjoy crime dramas, if you enjoy mysteries, if you enjoy those books that make you want to turn every single page just to find out what the next twist and turn is going to be, Sheriff of Babylon is that book for you. Okay, after those last couple ones, we need something a little bit lighter, so at number 14, The Fix. Warning, this is not a book for anyone under 18, and I know you might be saying, oh, I can handle that. No. This book is unlike anything I've ever read. This is one of those books where every single page makes me go, I can't believe they just got away with that. This is the story of two criminals, of two thieves, who also happen to be two corrupt cops, and they are currently trying to sell their story to Hollywood producers so that they can make a bank on their crazy criminal activities. However, when one of the celebrities that they were in charge of guarding winds up dead, and also their incredibly corrupt boss, who will kill them if they don't follow orders, starts to get on their case, yeah, things become way more complex for them. And I know that I have described this almost like it's going to be a serious crime drama. It's not. This is a comedy, and it's one of the best comedies I have read all year. When I said every single page, I can't believe what they got away with, I'm not just referring to like some of the brutal things that go on, because believe me, this is indeed a brutal crime story. I'm just talking about the jokes. I would love to give you an example of what I'm talking about, but I can't. It's too dirty for this list. Just take my word on this. This is only for the most mature readers out there. Now again, moving into something completely different, at number 13, Miss Marvel. It makes me so glad to see that after all these years, the character of Miss Marvel is still soaring so high. There are many words that I have used to describe several books on this list already, like charming, witty, heartful, relevant. Miss Marvel is all those things. In previous years, Miss Marvel was a character learning to become a hero. This to me was the year when she really finally became a hero. I'm not just saying that because this was the year when she actually joined the Avengers. I'm not just saying this because this was the year that she formed her own superhero team. I'm saying that because this was the year when this character finally stood up and started speaking and representing herself. When she stopped looking up to other people and she finally really truly embraced her own voice. And I think that voice speaks to so many people these days who really need it. Number 12, The Flintstones. Meet the Flintstones. Who on earth thought that when DC Comics announced that they were going to try and update all their old Hanna-Barbera properties, that the Flintstones not only would be the best out of these 4 books, but it would also end up becoming one of the best commentaries on modern day life. I was hopeful for this book because I knew the writers. I remember them from the Prez series, which I really enjoyed, and I was hoping that they would bring that sense of humor to this series, and they did. They did that wonderfully, but they took their commentary that they had in the Prez book and turned it up to 11. This series uses this prehistoric family to make commentary about so many things in our modern life. Everything from politics to war to news to just stuff. And I'm not saying that to be vague, I mean just the need to go to the mall and buy stuff. They have great commentary on all of this. And again, I'm saying this about a Flintstones book. I was really impressed by the first couple of issues, but when it got to the issue in which they addressed marriage equality, that was one of the most impressive issues of anything that I have read all year. And finishing off the list for today, at number 11, Mighty Thor. Mighty Thor is a series that does so many things. It is not only a very personal and touching story about Jane Foster as she tries to deal with cancer and as she has to constantly balance whether or not she tries to get better or whether or not she uses the hammer of Mjolnir to try and help others, but also it is turning into some Game of Thrones stuff this year. This year we saw so many different factions from the mythical realms start to rise up as Malekith the Accursed began his quest for power. And watching the way that Malekith rose to power, watching the way that he manipulated people, watching the way that he just laid waste to anyone in his way, not only did it make him one of the best villains of the year, but it made us cheer on Thor so much more. It is amazing to me that Jason Aaron is able to tell such a personal story for Jane Foster while at the same time telling such a huge, epic space battle story. That's it for this episode, everyone. Make sure that you come back next time for the finale, for the top 10 comics of 2016. Thank you to everybody who has stuck with me throughout every single one of these episodes. We are almost done, so remember to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to see more from me, you can always find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.